at the time.
Well, it was. We still have 1 more minute to go. If anybody wants to tell some funny story or some interesting anecdote,
Actually, we have 7 o'clock now, Mayor.
it is?
Yep.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Middleton City Hall. So this is only our second meeting of the Plan Commission in person after a long time. So I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022 to order. And the first item is the roll call, Abby.
Bruce,
Here?
Harp,
Here.
Ramsey,
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
Slavish,
Here.
and Mayor Brar is present. Erdman Hermans is excused this evening.
Okay, thank you, Abby. So the next big item, which starts at 7 o'clock, is the public hearing, a request for rezoning from agricultural to planned development district general implementation plan. This is for acre farm development. So at this time, I'm going to open this for public hearing, and I'm going to recognize the people who have already filled the form and want to speak. So I'm going to these are in the order which I have here. So I'm going to just go from the top and we keep going to the bottom. So the first one is Alan Muirhead. You have 30 minutes. Please identify yourself and come to the mic here. So, and you will keep track of the
Yes, I
time.
have it here.
And Abby will keep track of the time.
Addresses for the record on all of them?
And yeah, there is, but
Okay.
maybe they can,
That's fine.
3029 Old Creek, so.
Hello, I'm Alan Muirhead. I live at 3029 Old Creek Road. I am the president of the Solitude Unit Owners Association, although I'm speaking here today as a private citizen. Many of us are becoming very concerned about the volume of traffic coming down Pheasant Branch and cutting down Old Creek Road to get to Century Avenue. The institution, frankly, of a no left turn from Century onto Old Creek was minimal impact on that traffic. We are very concerned about the number of units in the proposed Acker Farm development, which would then, according to the current plat, be dumped out onto Pheasant Branch Road. Currently, more than 90% of the traffic on Old Creek Road is cut-through traffic. We're concerned that that would only be added to by the large number of units in the development. And so we urge the committee to work with the developers to reduce the access to Pheasant Branch Road, probably increase some onto High Road. I call your attention to the Sustainable Committee report, which said the proposed subdivision should have no outlet road onto Pheasant Branch Road. Rather, a second western outlet to High Road should be incorporated into a redesign that also adds more open lands. They comment that Pheasant Branch Road, as a designed town road, cannot currently handle more traffic safely. So having a major road outlet from the subdivision onto that road should not be allowed. I think that my wife and I certainly support that thought.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. So the next one is Deb Whitesell.
I am Deb Weitzel, 6602 Whittlesey Road here in Middleton. I'm a member of the Sustainability Committee as well. The renewable energy and energy efficiency recommendations are important for the City of Middleton to meet community-wide energy usage goals identified in Resolution Number 2018-32, overwhelmingly approved by voters and adopted by the Common Council in 2018. This resolution is especially important for new developments within the City of Middleton to follow and are addressed most cost-effectively when new buildings are constructed. May I remind you that the resolution states that by 2030, 66% of the community's electricity usage must come from renewable energy sources, and 21% of all energy needs, including heating of homes and businesses, from renewable sources. By 2040, 100% of electricity and 80% of all energy usage should be from renewable resources, with 100% of all energy usage from renewable resources by 2050. These goals incorporate energy efficiency reductions. Perhaps the biggest challenge for the City of Middleton will be to convert all heating from natural gas to electricity-based heating, including but not limited to heat pumps, and geothermal systems. Thus, any new development's reliance on natural gas for home heating is antithetical to Middleton's long-range renewable energy goals, electrical energy goals. Specifically, the Acre Farm development provides the opportunity to work proactively on these two renewable energy usage goals immediately, rather than requiring retrofitting later. Thus, the Sustainability Committee recommends that renewable energy production and usage systems be designed and installed up front to avoid expensive retrofits, as well as the corresponding demolition and landfilling of outdated systems. Two of our recommendations are as follows. Building lots should be configured so homes can have east-west roof ridge line that allows for south-facing solar energy panel installation. Better yet would be to require solar power. With solar in mind, avoid planting tall growing street trees on terrace locations that could impact solar energy production. Each dwelling should also be electrified so a renewable energy source can be utilized. In conclusion, the city should discourage same old practices and technology. Middleton can no longer use these practices and technology in new buildings if the community's renewable energy usage and energy efficiency goals are to be met. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. So the next one is Sally Carpenter. Sally Carpenter.
I'm Sally Carpenter. I live at 3043 Old Creek Road, and I am speaking actually in favor of the City Sustainability Committee's report, which we just heard a lot about. And the part of it that I like is having two entrance and exits onto High Road from the Red Tail development and none onto Pheasant Branch, which is already overcrowded and very narrow and would be very difficult to expand. So Old Creek Road residents are now working with the city to develop a plan to improve our safety for walking and driving. So I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. I appreciate that. Okay, so the next one is Andy. Is this Cravens? Andy, what is it?
He's just available to answer questions.
Oh, okay,
He doesn't want to-
okay, all right, so just put it over here. So the next one is Stephanie Moritz.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I won't say as much as I had planned to say because two of my neighbors have preceded me already, and I'd just be echoing the concerns that we have. I'm a resident living on 3053 Old Creek Road, and we do have a lot of traffic concerns at present. and feel that this development would only add to those concerns over time. And as Sally just said, we are in the midst of a project where we're working with the city on traffic calming measures. And we would hope that no decisions would be made about the traffic circulation for the Red-tailed Ridge development until we figure out how we can calm down the traffic we already have, which is over 90% cut through. And I did have a couple questions that I'm hoping will be addressed in the discussion tonight. I was looking at the traffic impact document on the city's webpage because I understand that a traffic impact analysis has not been done yet. Is that correct? Okay. And so my question is, where does that happen on the timeline for approval? And how can interested neighbors have input into that process, if we can? And also whether Red-tailed Ridge would be considered a medium or large-sized development in terms of that traffic impact analysis document. So those are some things that I would like to have clarified in the discussion if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. So the next one is Vince Jenkins. He said a register only, so you don't want to speak. And that is, doesn't say in sport or opposition or just,
Register only, Vince Jenkins on Old Creek Road. Doesn't say.
so is it in opposition or in sport or what? Yeah, go ahead and say whatever you like to say, sir.
My name is Vince Jenkins. I live at 3053 Old Creek Road. Hadn't planned to do this. But I am here just for information's sake and to reiterate what my neighbors and my wife have said, that growth is going to happen, we know that, but we would like to have it planned and developed so that traffic doesn't wind up coming right down Old Creek Road, which goes right past our front door. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next one is Hans Hilbert.
Thank you, Mayor Breyer. Plan Commissioners, Hans Hilbert, 3209 Cedar Trail, speaking tonight on behalf of the Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy as their co-president. First, to extend our appreciation of the developer for the Red-tailed Ridge subdivision, along with CARPC staff and city staff in the form of Mark Opitz for meeting with our watershed committee recently to hear some of our concerns and comments on the proposed subdivision. Earlier this year, we provided planning staff and engineering staff with a letter. I believe that the Plan Commission likely received that or had that available. Mostly stemming around the importance of stormwater management for this area's development because it drains into what we refer to as the Western Stream, flowing through the Ziegler property from High Road to Pheasant Branch Road and directly into a very important part of the Conservancy because we've spent a lot of resources in aquatic invasive removal in the wetlands in that area. And we view that area as an already failed system due to higher up issues in the watershed stemming from Graber Pond and failures to the Misty Valley stormwater system. So what we wanted to see is this subdivision not create any additional issues. And we're happy to hear that the developer is supportive of going above and beyond the ordinance requirements for stormwater management. And we feel that will satisfy the development and engineering requirements. But when we look at the sustainability plan and the city's comprehensive plan, we feel that the objectives and the goals of those documents is going to require more for us to continue to protect Pheasant Branch Conservancy. In particular, we think that low-impact development tools are going to be needed to continue to slow down the flow of water and get more stormwater into the ground before it hits into the lowlands and the wetlands, so infiltration in the uplands. per property management of those, and just overall incorporating the low impact development suggestions we provided in that letter. So I would hope that as part of this GIP approval, you would use similar language to that you required in the Bell Farm subdivision to encourage low-impact development to the maximum extent practical. Our other concern beyond the stormwater issues is to provide a safe pedestrian and bicycle crossing across Pheasant Branch Road. This city does not need any more deaths on that road of pedestrians or bicyclists. So there's about a 200-foot difference between where the paths on either side of that road are going to line up, and some focus and some cooperation with the county, the town of Springfield, and the city, and the Friends of Pheasant Branch is going to be needed, and we're happy to help with that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hans. So the next one is Judith Nystrom.
My name is Judith Nystrom, and I live at 3055 Old Creek Road. So I'm at the very top of Old Creek at the intersection with Pheasant Branch. And I agree with the points made by my neighbors previously about the importance of controlling the traffic coming on Pheasant Branch and going down Old Creek. That intersection routinely sees people speeding. Old Creek Road sees people speeding. When we first moved there 13 years ago, there was quite a police presence enforcing the speed limit on Pheasant Branch Road. With all of the developments since then, it's no longer possible for the police to be there as much as they need to be to ensure that people obey that speed limit. And I also feel, as somebody who uses Old Creek Road, Pheasant Branch Road to walk on and to drive on, it is not well suited to a big increase in traffic. It is too narrow, it's hilly, the surface is in poor condition, and there are animals present on it frequently, and it's just not well suited to a heavier traffic load. So some years ago, I was told by Mr. Stowski that the ultimate intention of the city's engineering department was to make High Road the primary route for people heading north-south to and from Century. And we would welcome that, because right now too many people are using our road to cut through, and at too high a speed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Judy. So the next one is Elder Lisa Anairo.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, to echo what so many other commenters have said, I'm not going to repeat what I just heard, but I support the Sustainability Committee comments, both on renewable energy, but also on the access to Pheasant Branch Road. I live pretty close to the Old Creek Road neighbors over there, and I too use Pheasant Branch Road a lot. I walk through the Conservancy a lot, and I totally agree it is not well suited for increased traffic of the level that we can expect if this development has an outlet onto Pheasant Branch. Completely agree with Hans Hilbert about making sure that there is a safe crossing, that the paths line up to get into the Conservancy. If there has to be access to Pheasant Branch Road, and I'm not convinced there has to be, at the very least, we need to have stop signs at that intersection. We also would benefit from having stop signs on Gaylord Nelson and Pheasant Branch Road to slow that traffic down. Another thing to consider is that the residents who move into this development and the ones who live in Misty Valley right now, and the ones who will move into Bell Farm may be subject someday to the Wanakee traffic coming down Pheasant Branch and cutting right through all three of those subdivisions to get to Parmenter on the west side. I don't think any of those residents will be well served by that. So if there has to be access, and again, I'm not convinced there has to be, if there has to be, make sure that both Bell Farm and the Acre Farm development build in traffic controlling measures right from the start, because that traffic will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elder Hanero. So there are a few other people who do not wish to speak, but they support this development. There's a Michael Seuss. Did I pronounce it right? Huh? Okay, Michael Seuss. And then there's a Ari, well, he will be this Ari Ribbons.
Oh, Carrie Wibben, she's
Okay.
part of the team that
Okay.
will present.
And then there's a Kelsey Simmons, and okay, those are the part of the team to present. So, okay, anyone else who is here who may want to speak at this time, who hasn't filled these papers? Anybody who may want to speak at this time? Okay, then there were some people who sent the emails, and Mark is going to go over the other communications.
Yes,
So-
we received 4 communications by email, and those are included in the meeting packet. The communications came from Stephanie Moritz, 3053 Old Creek Road, Susan Reish, 3023 Old Creek, Ricardo Soto, 3023 Old Creek, and Kristen Legali, 2865 Old Creek Road, and we provided those to the Plan Commission members earlier today, and they're in the meeting packet,
Okay,
all
And-
with similar concerns about traffic.
you just came. Do you want to speak either in favor or opposition of this proposal? Yeah, the person who just came now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was like,
Do you want to speak?
I just also wanted to come and,
Okay, go ahead and identify yourself and
Come to Mike.
come to the mic, please.
hi, good evening. I'm Molly Schwabach. Hi, Dan. I am in Dan's district. And I just wanted to echo some of the concerns that were in the reports, just following up on traffic concerns, especially on High Road and what's the other road that goes out there? Pheasant Branch Road. That I circle the Pheasant Branch Loop every day, and that crossing at the bottom of the hill between the neighborhood that comes across, where the path comes across, makes me very nervous, and so more traffic on that road would be a concern, I think. High Road is better equipped, maybe, but also needs additional pedestrian supports so that people can more easily get back and forth to town without using a car. And then also, I saw in some of the reports just some concerns about flooding and making sure that there was enough preparations made so that the Conservancy could contain flooding and that there wouldn't be a lot of damage. So those were the only 2 issues I wanted to echo. I'm sure other folks have said similar things. So
Molly, how do you spell your last name?
SCHWEBACH. I'm even out of breath from running. Thank you.
What's your address?
5601 Cedar Ridge Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay,
And I would also note, we received a comment from Commissioner Erdman Hermans, who's not here tonight, and she's concerned about pedestrian safety along Pheasant Branch Road and vehicle speeds along both north-south roads. So I just thought I'd pass that
Okay.
along since she shared that as
okay, there is no one who wants to speak. I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're going to go to the next item, which is the approval of the Plan Commission minutes of November 8th, 2022. Need a motion to approve. Okay, need a second?
Second.
All right, second by Randy. Any question, comments, changes? Okay. If no question or comments, all those in favor of the motion to approve the Plan Commission minutes of November 8th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are on to, minor specific implementation plan modification to Deming Way and Greenway Station planter pedestrian area changes. Daphne.
Sorry, I just. Yes, so this came before Plan Commission, I believe, in February, and it was when Greenway Station was proposing changing their parking to angled parking, which would create a reconfiguration of the pedestrian area, and so now the engineers have seen that they need a little bit more buffer area between the parking and the pedestrian area. So these green shapes are increased planter areas. So, you can kind of see where the old planters were in the red. And so they're increasing it to create more of a buffer between the pedestrians and the parking. Staff felt that this was important for Plan Commission to look at for pedestrian access, and since it's changing the parking as well, and we recommend approval as a minor SIP modification.
Thank you, Daphne. I think it's a great idea. Plants need more space so that they can grow bigger and stronger. So, need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion for approval. Slavish.
Okay, need a second.
Second.
Second by Randy. Let's have questions and concerns.
I guess I have two questions. One
Yes.
is of course, wasn't it over at the Hawks where they were talking about outside dining? And now they've got planters everywhere where they were gonna have outside dining?
Yes, I
Those
believe.
green space?
Yeah, I believe this area in the orange right here, it's a mix of planters and, where that's gonna be their outdoor dining area as well.
Hey.
So this big,
Yeah, you can come here and I will give you time. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that,
Identify yourself and please.
okay, I'm Roxanne Johnson. I'm the engineer on the project representing the owner. So that area by Tanner's is just temporary because they're tearing that down very soon. So we didn't want to pour a bunch of concrete just to rip it out in a month. So yes, there is going to be dining there. Yes. And then they're adding landscaping between the dining and sidewalk, but that's part of the Cooper's Hawk plan. But we're just kind of leaving that blank for now, like just mulch.
Is that, I guess addresses my second question, was that it seems like a very awkward walk.
Yeah, it's bad bubble area is temporary.
Okay.
Just enough to get ADA and people through during this interim process.
Yeah, you can tell Commissioner John would like to eat outside, sit
on a
outside to
playground.
eat. Yeah, it's so much enjoyable, so. Any other questions, comments? Or
Roxanne, are the planters just all at grade?
Yes.
Yeah, you would think that why didn't they make it bigger earlier? I mean, it makes sense. It's the right thing to do, right?
Right.
I mean, I applaud the concept. I think it's great because we were concerned before.
Right.
Less concerned now.
Okay, great.
No,
Thank you.
It's a great way to go. If there are no questions or comments, all those in favor of approving the minor specific implementation plan modification for Deming Way and Greenway Station planter pedestrian area changes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we are on to item number 2. This is the specific implementation plan modification signage at Greenway Station for immersive Van Gogh 1700 Deming Way. Mark.
Yeah, this, our ordinance, sign ordinance, only limits temporary signs to 30 days for new businesses and shorter duration for various types of temporary signs. This applicant would like to be here for several months, and so we advised that they needed to get approval as an SIP modification, a minor SIP modification. I have no concerns about the signage. It'll look very nice.
So are you telling me Van Gogh is coming to Middleton? Okay, well, I guess need a motion to approve. Randy, you are,
I'll make a motion to approve.
need a second?
Arp, second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Who is the owner here? You want to say anything? When can we come and start looking at it? There's anybody, and the applicant is here?
I don't think the applicant was able to make it.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
I know
So-
tickets are on sale.
Oh, okay. Any other question or comments other than the tickets on sale?
These are the enjoyable kinds of things to make exceptions for.
Yes, yes, this will
It
be a good
is still
thing, yes.
temporary, and it has to do with art and public interest, I think.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion for approving the specific implementation plan modification for signage at Greenway Station for immersive Van Gogh 1700 Hemingway, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are on to big thing now. So this is item number 3. Preliminary plat, Red Tail Ridge, Acre Farm Development between High Road and Pheasant Branch Road. So, Mark,
Yeah, Mayor, this was actually supposed to be item 4, and there was a glitch in how we generated the agenda. So, but either way, our staff recommendation is to postpone approval of the preliminary plat so it can be revised to address utility and right-of-way connections as well as any other engineering staff recommendations. That's our recommended motion, and I would add that the developer has actually already granted an extension of the timeline for review of the plat to February 7th.
okay, and you have a presentation here?
Not
Charles?
for this item, I don't think.
Not for this item?
Because this was meant to be after the rezoning request.
Okay,
So
okay, all right. So any questions or comments from the commissioner? It's, yes.
You know, Mark, just
Right.
a quick question on that. So some of the concerns that were expressed over a traffic impact study, is that going to be a part of
I'm going to mention all this.
analysis too?
I'm going to get to that with item 4, because item 4 was supposed to be item 3. So
And remind me again what item 3 is now that we're doing?
this is just supposed to, we're recommending you postpone the preliminary plat.
Okay. I'll move we postpone.
Okay, it looks like Chris is ready to say, well, somebody is ready to say second, right?
Harp second.
Okay, all right. Any questions or comments? Okay, I think all those in favor of the motion to postpone the preliminary plat, Red Tail Ridge, Acre Farm Development between High Road and Pheasant Branch Road, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are on to now item number 4.
And I thought I'd start us, go ahead if you want to read
Yes,
the agenda.
I
item,
will.
Yep, sorry.
Mark,
Sorry.
just a little bit patience, Mark.
I will be
so
more patient,
It will
Mayor.
happen. You will have the opportunity, so.
Sorry.
Request for rezoning from agricultural to planned development district, general implementation plan, PVD, GIP for Red Tail Ridge Acre Farm Development. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Brar. There's the planning staff report in the packet, which I won't repeat. I will simply note that the Common Council has voted to annex the property. That happened at the last meeting, and that this area is located in Area A of the intergovernmental agreement map that we have adopted with the town of Springfield. And Daphne's showing that on the screen right now. So this is, has long been the area identified in Middleton, north of Middleton, as our growth area. And so that's why you're seeing this before you tonight with I don't think any concerns from the town of Springfield. We did share this with the town of Springfield, and they have not provided any statements. I will supplement the staff report by making a few comments, if I may, and then invite the developer, Mayor, with your permission to make some remarks as well. The input provided by the Sustainability Committee and other committees earlier this year during concept review helped provide an early indication of the interests and concerns that likely will need to be addressed as part of the review of this general implementation plan, the preliminary plat, but I will add that those recommendations were not binding on the developer. It's up to them what they how they want to respond at the concept review level, and what we have before us tonight has been informed by the committee inputs that they've received so far and input from others. The city's comprehensive plan, specifically page 16, strategy 1A, advocates for the development of complete neighborhoods so that daily needs are available within a short distance of residences, thereby reducing the amount of time of traffic leaving the neighborhood. That's one of the formative goals. I'm basically trying to just supplement my staff report with some of the other points that could have been included. Another point is that having an urban street grid with numerous connections to adjoining streets and undeveloped land to the north and south, as you see in the on the screen, it's an important way to foster connectivity and pedestrian bicyclist circulation, thereby distributing traffic and reducing the burden on a street like High Road, which directly serves numerous residences and an elementary school. It's highly unlikely that all or even a majority of future residents, especially those living closer to High Road, would use Pheasant Branch Road on a regular basis, even if there were a direct street connection with the neighborhood. And I think the extension of Bellefontaine Boulevard, which goes west off this map, as everyone probably knows, that's going to connect to Parmenter Street. That will help distribute area traffic towards Parmenter Street and the Beltline. Regarding the character of Pheasant Branch Road, the Common Council decided over a decade ago not to reconstruct it as an urban cross-section. And that's, I think, been a very formative position that the city took to not widen the road. But they have not directed that there be no future intersections beyond Gaylord Nelson and Whittlesey Roads. In other words, they have never said that we couldn't have connections. So that's why city staff has guided the development to have connectivity. Having a narrower street, as Pheasant Branch Road is today, does help reduce vehicle speeds. And of course, the traffic calming measures that people mentioned are helpful as well. The traffic impact analysis, that is going to be a condition if the city decides to proceed with this as a condition of approval. The TIA will document anticipated traffic volumes and patterns along various streets in the area, and we think it would be a good idea to include Old Creek Road specifically as part of that analysis. There's already a water and sewer utility study that is underway that will likely be completed within a month. And then the last point is that neither the EMS nor the police object to the name Red Tail Ridge, which is something I touched on in the staff report as well. We have not heard from the fire district, but those other two first responders have said they are okay with the name. Other than that, there's some discussion points that we could walk through in the staff report, but before I go on too much, I think maybe it'd be good to hear from the developer.
Yeah, okay, so the developers, you got your opportunity now. Please identify yourself and
I'm
you
Chad
have
Wibben.
all the time, so.
Chad Wibben with Encore Homes. I'm the developer of the property, and with me tonight, I brought, Tom Rogers from the Smith Group. He is our lead designer and landscape architect, and also Andy Crooks from TR McKenzie, a local apartment builder and developer. He will be our partner in the multifamily portion of the project.
And anybody else you want to identify? Anybody?
That's good enough for now.
Okay, all right, okay.
I think that our application, our GIP PDD application was very thorough, so I'm not going to go through a bunch of that again. I think it was well put together. I also think that the staff report from the city was very thorough. So a lot of the issues have been identified, and a lot of them have been gone through already in the report, so I'm not going to re-say a lot of that stuff tonight. I just wanted to take my few minutes before I introduce Tom to say that, to discuss the guiding principles of our development team and how we've come to where we've come today. Our goals, based on the comp plan, and our number one goal was to live up to the city's comp plan. You guys are fortunate that you have a relatively new comp plan, and it's up to date and it's relevant. In a lot of places, that's not the case, unfortunately. So the comp plan fits into our vision for this neighborhood very nicely, so it's not difficult for us to follow the comp plan, I guess. So that's been one of our guiding principles. We like to think of this development as sustainable, attainable, and, sorry, I lost my place there for a second, and complete. You're going to hear more about that as we go along. I'm sure that there'll be some questions, and I'm more than happy to answer the questions for you. But like I said, as the guiding principles, adherence to the comprehensive plan, appropriate land use, sustainable design, energy efficiency, and building practices, another guiding principle for us. And then we wanted to be a good neighbor and be an asset to Middleton. To that end, we have met with quite a few city committees, as we were referred to by the Plan Commission the last time we were here. We have adopted and incorporated as many things as we possibly could, some of which are contradictory, which is some of the things that we still have to talk about as we go along. We held a neighborhood meeting a couple of months ago. We didn't just reach out to the people that were required to by statute. We reached out to neighborhood associations and everybody around because we wanted everybody that was interested to come and have this conversation. And from my perspective, it was very well received, and I thought it was a great meeting. Daphne was in attendance, and it just went really well. So we have listened all the way along. I think we've incorporated, for the most part, everything that we possibly could that wasn't contradictory from the committees. And when it comes to stormwater, we're currently at, our models show 101.3% post-development stay on. That may change a little bit, but I'm confident we'll be over 100%. We also are planning for a 200-year peak event as opposed to a 100-year. So we're exceeding, in many cases, statute requirements, essentially. Again, to try to go one step further than we maybe would have had to be a good neighbor. I think that when you look at our parks, when you look at our trails, when you look at our interconnectivity, I think you'll see that we've done these things with the best intentions to the city and the neighborhood. We didn't try to dump a bad corner of land on the city for a parkland. We chose the best possible, highest vistas in the neighborhood. We tried to embrace that instead of avoid it, essentially. And again, Tom will get more into the pathways and connectivity, but I hope that you see that we've really put our best foot forward and tried to be a good neighbor and develop a fantastic neighborhood. Attainability, in my mind, it's been a career goal of mine. I believe that people should live in homes, whether they're rental or owner-occupied, but I want to provide some affordable housing. I shouldn't say affordable, that's a dangerous word, I apologize for that. Attainable is the word I prefer to use. We have, along with many other crises, we have an affordability crisis that we need to try to work toward figuring out. With that, I'm going to bring up Tom Rogers. I'll be available for questions, and I'll let him take it away.
Tom Rogers, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I'm Tom Rogers. I'm a landscape architect with Smith Group, and it's been great to work with the team here on the project. We've been assisting with the master plan overall. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. I will walk through the overall approach that we have to the plan, to just walk through how it's laid out on the site and some of the decisions we made along the way. This graphic just shows the overall location of the site. We've been through a couple other graphics on that before, though, so I think we can move to the next one. Overall, when we started on this project, Chad came to us with a couple things. One, he wanted to develop a really great neighborhood. He knew that he wanted to develop a mix of different housing product at different sizes and scales and different levels of affordability. And then three, the other thing that he said was really important about the project was integrating stormwater management and open space into it. So we took those all into consideration as we laid out the plan. First, looking at what the circulation was, what the overall planning was for around the site, understanding Bellefontaine, this main thoroughfare that would move through there, working a really strong circulation plan off of that, and then looking at the natural topography of the land, understanding how stormwater worked on it and how we had to develop around that. Using that as our framework, we started to work out the balance of how all the other streets fit together, how the other pieces and parts of the development fit together. So you go to the next slide. So overall, our approach from a density standpoint is to work from the west side or next to High Road to the east side, and we go from more dense to less dense. So on the west side, you see apartments, you see that mixed-use building that could or would include some commercial. You see the two flat typicals and the live work typicals. That's in that first block that's adjacent to High Road. As you move along Bellefontaine, we fronted Bellefontaine with townhomes, and you see north and south of it, there's a pocket neighborhood on either side. So these are alley-loaded lots, garages on the alleys with a front door that faces shared open space or shared green space. They have stormwater management around them. They have a really nice community space that's in there. As we move farther into the site, you see two pockets, one just to the south of the pocket neighborhood, and then one up in the northeast corner that are carriage lots. So these are also alley-loaded lots with garages in the back. They're a little bit smaller lot with nice front porch, really nice walkable lots. And then as you move to the south and east, these are your standard lots. You also see the integration of the parks and the trails within that. So overall, that's kind of the layout of the different development types or the different housing product that would be in there. Then when we look at the overall parks and open space, Chad mentioned the two parks that we really wanted these parks not only to be there to meet the needs of the city, but also to be in really good land. These are both two highly visible intersections, one on Bellefontaine and then turning off of that, really the two main, really at the main intersection of the whole site. It's also on more or less the high point of the site with great views to the southwest. The second park is a little bit smaller, but also integrated on one of these main most connected routes. So these are about 7.5 acres, between 7.5 and 8 acres. They're also highly walkable. And if you go to the next slide, they're integrated into this overall open space system. You can see those two red circles are about a 5-minute walk radius from the edge of the park. So anywhere in this development, really, you could walk to one of those parks that we're planning. Much of the development is also very close to Pheasant Branch, as many people have mentioned already. And it's connected by this open space network that has both trails, integrated stormwater, native landscaping to really create a nice pedestrian-based environment where we're promoting people being out of their houses, walking around, being out in open space. Overall, it's about 36 acres or so. Almost 30% of the site is developed or is dedicated to open space in some form or fashion. I talked a little bit about the interconnectivity. This shows the pedestrian circulation. It very much follows the road network. You see three main things here. One, the largest, fattest pink line is the multi-use path, one that borders Bellefontaine. The other borders the road that comes out to Pheasant Branch. So these are the two main thoroughfares that you would use on a bike. So they're multi-use. They're off the street though. Second, all the streets that we have sidewalks on them. There's also walks outside of that as well. When we talked about the cottage lots or the cottage lots that are there, they have sidewalks that front on the other side. And then we have trails that connect the rest of those green spaces. So really knitting together a really nicely well-connected green space network with lots of options. There's not just one option to move through it. You can also see how well connected it is to the perimeter of the site. Mark mentioned connecting to the properties on all sides, not just east and west, but future development to north and south, and making sure that we had good opportunities for that. That is coupled with, I can't remember what slide's that. Oh yeah, thanks. Next slide, please. That is coupled with our stormwater network. So the stormwater network and the open space network are integrated with one another. We looked at integrating the stormwater system so that we were looking at the overall runoff on the site, not just dropping it in two ponds, but really integrating it throughout the site. So using a combination of bioretention, infiltration basins, bioswales, rain gardens, soil conditioning, so we're getting good infiltration, and native planting. So we're dispersing that network throughout the site. We do have stormwater controls, so we make sure that we're maintaining pre-development peak runoff. From a 1-year to a 200-year storm, that's not increasing from what would leave the site today. In a 1-year storm, we're infiltrating 100% of the water that falls on site. So we're making sure we keep that water, that 100% stay on, that's staying on. So that's above the 90% that's usually required. The 200-year is above the 100-year that's normally required. So we felt that was integral to make those systems work and integrate them with this network of open space in a really well-designed landscape. So overall, looking at this development, we wanted to create a great pedestrian space. We wanted to create a great neighborhood, has a good scale of streets. It's very walkable. It's a mix of uses, and it fits that middle housing where there's a range of different affordability. We wanted opportunity for commercial and live work spaces, this integrated network. We wanted parks and open spaces, or really park spaces that were highly visible and usable. And we wanted a dispersed stormwater network that ties everything together, really ties to the character of Pheasant Branch that's there across the street, really building on that as part of the identity for the community. So we're really happy to be working on this. Chad has been a great partner to work for. We're really thrilled about the prospect of the development, and we look forward to questions.
Is there any more presentation, or that's okay? Let's start with the question. So I'm going to start here. I liked that you're meeting the neighbors, and I saw that there were 30 people there, and you listened to them and addressed their concerns. And the second part of which I also liked is you met with the Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy as well. And the third part which I like is that, when you came the last time, we referred it to various committees. So I spent all afternoon just going through those committees' comments, and from what I have seen, and I will ask Mark Deputy and Abby to correct me, that in most cases, you have tried to address their concerns. There are some concerns, maybe, they are too big, but you are addressing those as well. So one of the big things which come out of it is that the TIA. So we don't really know right now that what we're going to find out in terms of TIA, how much traffic will go on High Road, and if it was connected to Pheasant Branch, how much will be there. And what's really concerning to a lot of the citizens here is that what will happen to the Old Creek Road. So I think, I have walked that road many times. It's unimproved, and I don't really know why people are using it. So it is sort of interesting that how they took that Pheasant Branch up to where they did, and then it just, isn't, you would think that it will go directly to the Century Avenue. It doesn't, so it just sort of bifurcates there. So we got issues there, so I don't know if there's any plan to address that. Only Mark Daphne or Abby would know. So also, which is interesting is, which is related to this, is because we are talking about Old Creek Road, that the neighborhood is looking at the traffic impact and some of the traffic calming issues. So I don't know, the staff probably would know what our plans are for Old Creek Road, if any, and then in the end, you really would want to know how many of those people who will be taking the Pheasant Branch Road will actually end up using the Old Creek Road. So, these are some of the, one thing which I really like is that you have two parks. I think that's simply awesome. And when I saw that one of them is very scenic, will be high, would have Vista Point, I think people would love it. And the lastly is 29% is a green space, so it will take up water, so which is great. So I think it is a large development. It's I guess the last time we had about 600 units, and one of the commissioner wanted let's have a little bit more dense, and so it is quite a bit more than what it was at that time. So I open up for comments from the other commissioners. Please just raise your hand or speak. It looks like Randy wants to speak. Well, he was looking for his glasses.
I will speak.
Okay.
This is, I think, for staff. What have any decisions been made yet about improvements to High Road or Pheasant Branch Road?
No, the TIA is not underway yet. Our city engineers developing a scope of services with our consultant SRF, which does the city's TIAs. And as I mentioned earlier, we really want to see Old Creek Road be a prominent part of that TIA. And so we don't have any recommendations yet because the TIA hasn't been conducted.
While we're on the TIA, can I expand just
Sure,
a
go
little bit?
ahead.
There was a speaker who had some specific questions about the TIA process.
Oh,
She had asked about when in the development review process the city conducts the traffic impact analysis, and it's typically done. It usually gets started right around the time that we're studying the general implementation plan, which is the phase that we're at right now, or the GIP, because we can't start working on that traffic study until we have a pretty good sense of what the density of the development is going to be, what the street network that is being proposed is going to look like, and where there are access points that are being proposed. And the reason is once we start working on that study, it's a pretty extensive process with SRF consulting. It takes about 60 to 90 days to complete the study, and we don't want to have to start over from scratch if there are a lot of changes. So that's the reason that this is the time when we start working with our consultant. For clarification, that study is paid for by the developer, but it's run by the city through our consulting firm locally that holds the city's traffic model. So our city engineer is working on getting that scope of work prepared. That will be approved by the city engineer, and then once the study is completed, it will go to the city's Public Works Committee for review and approval. If there are any recommended changes to the street network, specifically looking at intersections and the functionality of nearby intersections, if any of those are impacted specifically by the development and not by traffic that is unrelated to the development, the city typically would require for the developer to pay the costs of those improvements to be made. Another specific question was whether this would be a medium or a large TIA. And the breakdown is how many trips that our consultants would anticipate would be made during peak hours. And so if it's between 100 and 499, that's considered a medium scope traffic impact analysis. But if we go over 500 anticipated vehicle trips during peak hour related to the development, that's what would kick it up into the large TIA. And because we don't have the scope of work yet from our consulting firm, we don't know whether it would be medium or large. I would bet that it probably would be large because the Bell Farm project, which is kind of on the other side of Middleton Ridge, that has 880 units of housing and some commercial space, and that was a large traffic impact analysis. So we don't know yet. We don't have the scope of work, but if I had to guess, it would probably be large.
And that was my sense too, is it's very similar.
Okay, thank you, Abby. And
The only other, I just wanted to address the applicant for a moment. I just want to say how much I appreciate the efforts that you've made so far. I think there's a lot left for us to get our arms around in terms of traffic, particularly, and stormwater management. But the layout of the development and the design, the careful design that you've done, I think is commendable. Thank you.
thank you, Randy. Other commissioners? John, go ahead. Commissioner
I've seen
John.
this before because I'm the chair of parks, and I appreciate the parkland, and I think we're all very pleased with those as options. I think overall it seems like a good development. I'm very sensitive to the traffic issues, and I think we have to deal with those things, but that's separate from the development itself. My only concern, we're talking about traffic on Old Creek and why people take Old Creek Road. One of the reasons is if you don't, you're dumped right into a four-way stop sign and a traffic light right in the middle of a busy intersection full of stores and people who don't quite know where they're going. And that's my only concern here, is that's exactly as the one westbound entry dumps you right by whatever sort of commercial district is going to be there. And are people going to then want to flood out the Pheasant Branch only because they find that to be an annoying intersection full of traffic and lights and all those things? So you might want to consider that you have that one funnel on that one side that's also going to be very congested funnel, so I have concerns about that. So I generally express concern about the traffic. I don't have big issues with the development itself. I think it's.
Do you mind if I respond to traffic just
Yeah,
for a
please.
second?
Go ahead.
Just, I'd
Go
like
ahead,
to
Chad.
make sure that everybody knows in the audience that we are waiting for a traffic TIA, basically.
Yeah.
So we have to start somewhere, and then we have to adjust once we get that information. So I just don't want you all to think that we're not paying attention to what you're saying. There's other people that are asking for different things, but this will work itself out at the process, and I agree and I appreciate the comments, but there are questions that are not answered yet because we don't have this TIA.
And I would add, and I had shared this with Chad with you last week, one of our staff comments in the report, planning staff report, is that we anticipate an east-west road on the north end of this development to line up with Greenbrier Road. You can see it on the map here where the word community on the left, on the west side, right by High Road, that's Greenbrier. And it seems very logical to extend that and have a north-south road that's currently an alley by the commercial. You see that between the alley and the cottage lots. I mean, between the commercial, multifamily, and the cottage lots, there's a north-south alley. We suggested perhaps that be a street that connects to that east-west street to help distribute traffic, and I think Chad said he was open to that.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Abby, with the scope of service for the TIA, Sean does that? Does he do that with any input from you?
He does, yeah. We work with him to help determine what percentage of households may work from home. We work with the MPO on that as well. I know within the Bell Farm development, I think we anticipated that there may be 10% that would work from home because they have all the live-work units that are associated with that development. It doesn't come to the Plan Commission for formal approval, the scope of work, but he does work with our planning staff on that.
And in the scope of that, that doesn't lay out any scenarios, it just takes exactly what is here. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, it takes exactly what is being proposed as it's laid out. If there are concerns with particular aspects of the development, there were a few different areas of concern within the Bruce Company project, then we can look at an alternative, but that's usually under an amendment to the original contract with the consulting firm. So they can look at, would this modification to this roadway help with this issue that's been identified? So if there are any concerns that are identified, we can work with them on that.
And then take it back to them and have it relooked?
Yes, yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had just one
Yeah, go
follow-up
ahead.
question to
Go ahead,
that,
Mike.
Abby, and I guess this is for you or Mark. So one of the questions I think that was raised by somebody here tonight was, well, through that TIA analysis process, and I understand it's kind of a, it's a scientific analysis, of movement of vehicles, but, would there be any opportunities for those that live in this area to provide input to that, or at least, hey, this is what we see, on a daily basis? That's part of that process?
Well, so there's not a formal public hearing, but the Public Works Committee, when they review the traffic impact analysis, they are pretty open to accepting comments from people who attend those meetings. You're on Public Works, aren't you, Dan? So it's not as formal of a committee like the Plan Commission or the Common Council where you need to speak during the comments section.
So I think the point, those that may want to provide input to that would probably be the venue. Sorry, Dan, for, moving it.
It's all right.
But that would probably be the right venue to do that.
Right, and I don't know the extent of the work that's being done through the neighborhood traffic management plan. I have a little bit of experience with that program from a temporary tactical urbanism project that our department worked on over the summer. And I know that it is a very extensive process that requires a lot of petitioners from neighbors, and it will take some time. I'm guessing that that's looking at 1+ years of work to get through that program. So like I said, I know about the recent change that was made to prohibit left turns by the city council, and it sounds like from some of the feedback that hasn't had a huge impact. I don't know what the status of the neighborhood traffic management program is and what improvements are being looked at by the neighbors for Old Creek Road. So, it's good that this is being taken through our Public Works Department because it's the same staff that's working with the neighborhood on that. So they're aware of the concerns and they can make sure that the TIA takes a look at that as well.
Abby, the neighborhood had a meeting, I'd say a week ago. They met as a group, the Old Creek Road residents, to discuss the city's traffic management program. And so it's my understanding they're working on a proposal. Speed bumps have been suggested and some other measures perhaps. So I think we're going to be seeing that formal proposal coming from them. There are a couple discussion points that I think haven't been touched on yet that I just want to call out. I've mentioned a few of them already, but one of them is if you look at the circulation, the one that had showed the pedestrian circulation. Well, let's start with this one first, actually. At the top here, the yellow, the comment in orange, we want to make sure that our emergency responders can navigate the alleys. So that's one of the key concerns. I just want to flag that for you, that's a significant concern of all staff. And I presume everyone here agrees with that. But if we go to yeah, there we go. One of the things I noticed here is that the orange shows the sidewalks. Well, the ones that are north of Bellefontaine and to the south, if you can circle here, they don't connect to the sidewalk system. And so the way this is depicted, and again, this is just the general implementation plan, these sort of things will be fleshed out in the SIP ultimately, but we want to make sure that these are connected to the pedestrian system and that the sidewalks are connected to the main sidewalk system. So I presume that's everyone would be in agreement with that, and I think, Chad, you understood the comment I made.
Yes, I think this is, yes,
It's
this
just
is
concept.
just not developed to the point of
Understood.
SIP yet, but yeah,
Right.
agree completely.
But we just want to make sure that that's taken care of, and as it relates to the TIA, we want to make sure that they understand these are the parameters for the TIA. One of the comments, if you can go back to the previous development plan, our public works staff identified one of the cul-de-sacs. I don't remember which page that was now. Maybe it's earlier. It showed the cul-de-sac on the bottom, the southern cul-de-sac. Our public works staff suggested that be connected. Yeah, that one that be a street connected to the south. I don't have a strong opinion on this whatsoever, but I know that was a comment that they got. Chad, I don't know what your reaction is to that. There should be another
I would
drawing.
like to
There you go,
probably
that one.
have a chance, and I think that's coming up next, to talk to Public Works again and work through it, because I think there's arguments to be made in both directions.
Okay. And then, as Hans Hilbert and perhaps others noted, we want to make sure that trail system that leaves the southeastern part of the development connects properly across Pheasant Branch Road with the county parking lot. About 200 feet, I think Hans said, to the south. That sounds about right. We also want to make sure that you work with the Friends of Pheasant Branch and the county, which manages the property, to make sure that we have that connection. And these are all details that we'll get into later. And the last question that I highlighted in the staff report was the connection along High Road, making sure that that we have a sidewalk that connects up to Bellefontaine to help make this a walkable neighborhood. Currently, there's a path there that's 10 feet wide. Whether that should be a sidewalk or a path, that's another thing we'll need to address. But getting into details, maybe that are beyond what we need to cover tonight. For utilities, we don't need to get into that at this level. And then there's the overall name issue. If you have any feedback on that, we should get that discussed as well. Because that's a recurring, as you noted, some things are contradictory, and we want to start giving you some direction. So I just want to provide that as an issue as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mark. So red-tailed ridge looks okay, right?
Anybody have any concerns?
I don't have any concerns with
The reason why it's a concern is because there's a small subdivision called Red Tail Acres by Orchids by the Acres.
Yeah, but this is a ridge, so, yeah.
So
Okay, so.
I would appreciate if we could leave it. The family that owned the farm, they like it. It seems to fit nicely, and And, you know, and there's some details such as road names that, honestly, Mark, we knew that they would probably get rejected and we would have to adjust those. That road names are the bane of my existence because, as Mark pointed out in his report, it's almost impossible now to come up with an original name that doesn't sound ridiculous, you know? But we started an office pool or an office challenge, we'll come up with something eventually.
Well, and that's all
Trail, you put
details.
Circle, you put lane, you
Yeah.
put all these things after.
No, that doesn't help, actually. If it sounds like another name in the county, we have a problem, so.
And the only reason I got into some of these details is because the engineering staff comments got into some of those details, but that really gets into more the SIP, level.
Yeah.
So, but from a TIA standpoint, we need to, as Abby said, know what the parameters are that we need to provide our staff. So,
Yeah, John probably would think the musical instruments, let's go with violin, tuba, all of those things, so.
Speaking of John, though, there was one comment I just want to make before.
Go ahead.
Mark changed the subject, is I agree very strongly with your comment you said before about Old Creek Road being considered as part of as we do the traffic study. Because it's a very attractive nuisance in a way, and that I've been there and there's lots of reasons why people take that. And so I think it has to be considered some way. It's going to be impacted significantly. I think we just want to put that in the record that I think that's important.
So it's clear to you, so all those Old Creek neighborhood, we will do whatever we can to address your concerns. Like John said too, I'm all there. I know don't know why and how that became an issue, but I don't know, do we know, Abby, the traffic counts or any of that? Is it getting worse, better?
We'll take fresh traffic counts as part of the TIA. So I don't know if they've done that with the neighborhood traffic management program yet. If you have new traffic counts that have been done recently.
I don't think so.
Okay.
We as a neighborhood have done our own informal counts, but it needs to be a comprehensive count.
Okay, thank you. So you can see we take your concerns seriously. Most of the concerns here are related to, this particular neighborhood. So I don't know if there's any way one could, you can't really control that traffic going there. I hope there are some ways. So I want to say, I looked at your, the units. 50% of your unit will be owner occupied. And I think, if my math is right, so which is really good. That's what we need in Middleton rather than, apartments. We need some, the homes and duplexes which are actually occupied. The people, they can build the equity in there. So there are several other points which I have here. Big one is stormwater. You are already addressing that. And there's replacing some sidewalk. I'm sure consider replacing the sidewalk along the east side of High Road, an extension of 10 feet wide shared use path. And that's a question for the staff too. So we own only half of the High Road. So how can we, and there will be still part of the High Road which will be not owned by us. So how can we even improve that road? So what are we going to do? I mean, you can't improve that road. We don't own it. So something which we need to work on, Mark and Abby and Daphne. So.
The path comes up almost to the property line. I'm sure we can work with the same approval process that we went with the town of Springfield to extend that. I would think we could do that.
Yeah, but if we want to do anything with the road, improve it.
Well, right.
Anyway, so.
Better than Pheasant Branch.
Well, a lot of good comments here, a lot of things for you to digest, but what I like is you guys are listening, so I think that's very important, and that makes a difference in the end, so.
So I just want to take a second to thank you guys because, your direction and the committee's directions have helped us make, at the end of the day, a much better project. I agree, and I appreciate your input.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Otherwise, we need a motion, Abby, or what do you need here?
So the recommendation was to postpone a decision on the zoning map amendment so that the applicant can revise the GIP submittal to address questions pertaining to street, path, and utility connections and any other issues that arise during the public hearing. That's where we want your guidance.
I make that motion. Need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Harp, you got some,
Looks good.
got a smile on your face. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to postpone this, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item number 5. Resolution 2022-68, a resolution to recommend urban services area amendment in the city of Middleton for the acre farm development. So just need a motion to approve, right? Approve the resolution?
Yes, our
Well,
recommendation
okay,
is
go
to
ahead, Abby, I
approve-
give you the time to speak. So.
Our recommendation is to approve Plan Commission Resolution 2022-68. And if the commission approves this evening, we would take a similar resolution to the Common Council for their approval on 12/6.
Okay, so,
Approve.
okay, need a second.
Bruce will second.
Any questions or comments? They're just approving the, sending it to Corp C. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution 2022-68, resolution to recommend urban services area amendment in the city of Middleton for the acre farm development, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Well, motion passes unanimously.
Who was
We
the
are-
second on that?
Bruce.
Oh,
Bruce. Okay,
yeah.
that's what I thought.
We are on to item number 6, agreement for tax incremental finance District number 3 and District 5. These are the redevelopment services for 2023 for Vanderwall and Associates. Abby.
Yes, this is the consulting firm.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the consulting firm that the city has worked with for many years on our TIF development projects. And we are looking for approval of this contract. I would note that under the current arrangement, the principal level is the member that we work with most commonly at the firm, and we're in an agreement right now for an hourly rate of between $195 and $220. However, they are only charging us $185. They have grandfathered us under that just because the city has been a longtime client. So we're actually paying a little bit less than what our current contract says. There is a slight increase in this new contract. We felt that it was pretty much in line with inflation costs and what we're seeing on other project cost increases. And so our recommendation is to recommend approval to the Common Council.
So now in the past, we used to have up to $50,000. Now, is there still there or not?
I don't remember the maximum on this one. Daphne, can you go back a couple of pages? I don't remember there being.
I know in the past years, I did try to read through, but I didn't.
Yeah, I could go back and look at the one. Let's see. There is no fixed budget, which is what
Okay.
my recollection was.
Okay.
It's on an as-needed
Okay.
basis. We used to have weekly meetings with the consultants, and now we're down to at most one per month. So our costs have decreased quite a bit over the last few years. But I don't think that this one has a
Okay.
cap.
Okay, need a motion to approve.
Schaefer moves.
Need a second.
Lavish will second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agreement for tax incremental finance district number 3 and number 5, redevelopment services for 2023 for Vanderwall and Associates, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are on to the last item of the evening, which is the concept review recommendation to update planning zoning fees. Daphne.
Yes, so we did a review of our planning and zoning fees, and we decided that it was time to update some of them. And so in this memo, there's a recommendation for updating several of the fees on the second page, and adding a request for future land use map amendment. We've seen one come through already, and we anticipate that there might be more in the future that would require staff review. We have to, notice those hearings and all of that. So it does take quite a bit of staff time. So we decided to add that as a new fee as well.
So I was going through this. You have a table on the first page where you compare with Sun Prairie, Fitchburg, Monona, and Madison. So if you look at single-family home, we are quite a bit higher than Sun Prairie, than all of them, right? So we have 250. Surprisingly, they have 35. And then you look at large recommended industrial and principal, ours is 1,000. Is there a mistake? They have just Sun Prairie, just like that word 35 everywhere. Is there a mistake? Or
$35 is half an hour of staff time. And I can't imagine that they're only spending half an hour of time reviewing a project of that
We gotta
size.
see Sun Prairie getting all the businesses. Days. Somebody new coming
Yeah,
to Sun Prairie.
I mean, under my review, they just had one fee for zoning permit, which was $35. So
which is hard to believe, right?
yeah.
Okay, well, I would, there are people who, I like to hear from Randy and Mike and Chris here that since you guys pay some of those fees, or you are more aware of it, so let's see, what do you think of this increasing the fees, or I don't think we are reducing any, so.
I don't have an issue with these fees. They're a nominal increase, Mayor. I mean,
Okay.
Staff time is valuable.
Yep.
When we get to the park fees, I'll have
that's
more to
in
say
the-
about
We're going down.
What do you
But I
think,
mean, I
Randy?
think these are minor
Okay.
increases.
Okay, all right, then need a motion to approve.
Slavish will make a motion.
Need a second.
Harp second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Any question? All those in favor of the motion to approve these fees as proposed, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Well, motion passes. Anything else anybody wants to share?
Not quite.
Okay, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Bruce
All
will
right,
second.
So one of them is moved, other is second. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes and we are adjourned.